If there was anything heroic about heroics, it was the fact that people bravely tried to play this deck and make it work. From their restrictive and baffling spells and traps to their lackluster monsters, heroics didn't really function as a solid deck. Even when the new support in 2022 strengthened its glass cannon playstyle, the playstyle turned out to be a soggy, bare paper towel roll. If this analogy isn't convincing you, heroics aren't worth the cardboard they're printed on. Maybe a nice 15 to 20 minute video will make you see the light on why a trap card that makes your opponent's life points 8,000 doesn't do your archetype any good. As stated, you can toss heroics into the category of glass cannon decks. Glass cannon decks are usually decks that put all of their resources into making an attack that OTKs your opponent and fully commits to offensive power, but are entirely fragile and linear if anything goes wrong. However, heroics initially didn't start as a full-on glass cannon archetype, but they were battle phase oriented in the early years of Yu-Gi-Oh! The first wave of support came out in Return of the Duelist in 2012 alongside some meta favorites like Spellbooks and Yugioh. 5 monsters would be given out to our brave warrior type monsters. Heroic Challenger Spartan was a level 4 warrior monster. Once per turn, when your opponent's monster declares an attack, you can target one face-up heroic monster you control, except this card, and this card gains attack equal to that face-up monster's original attack until the end of the battle phase. Heroic Challenger Warhammer was a level 6 warrior that equipped a monster that was destroyed by this card in battle. They gained attack equal to the attack of the monster, but could only equip one monster at a time. Heroic Challenger Sword Shield was a level 4 that could be sent from the hand to the grave during either player's turn if you controlled a face-up heroic monster to prevent you from taking battle damage, and heroic monsters you control can't be destroyed by battle for the rest of the turn. Heroic Champion Double Lance lets you summon another Double Lance from your hand or graveyard in defense position, but it can't be used as a synchro material or XCs for anything except for warrior XCs. Finally, their XCs, Heroic Champion Excalibur, was a rank 4 with 2000 attack and defense that took 2 level 4 warriors to make. You can detach 2 materials from it in order to double its original attack and defense until the end of your opponent's turn. While the main deck monsters left much to be desired, Excalibur was a staple in almost every warrior deck that could make it. It saw a lot of play in archetypes like ninjas and heroes because it just needed 2 generic warrior monsters to make. It was also a great way to finish off your opponent or get over your opponent's biggest monsters. What deck wouldn't want a 4000 attack on demand? Too bad the deck it was built for was too slow to actually make it. Also, with this deck being battle-based, it was only good going second, as most of the effects outside of Double Lance didn't really do anything. It also had no search engine and highly depended on reinforcement to the army, even though Rota was at 1 at the time. The 2 spell trap supports they got on release didn't really help either. Heroic Chance was a normal spell that lets you target a heroic monster and double its attack, but that monster can't attack directly. Heroic Retribution was their normal trap card. Target one face-up heroic monster you control, equip this card to that target. All battle damage you take from battles involving the equipped monster is also inflicted on your opponent. After damage calculation, destroy any opponent's monsters that battle the equipped monster. You can clearly see that the intent was basically to hit your opponent's monsters hard. A premise so easy that a caveman can do it. Too bad heroics suck at everything else. The main problem was that the main deck heroic monsters were way too focused on battling your opponent's monsters rather than directly damaging your opponent. As great as Heroic Chance was, you couldn't attack directly, making it hard to finish off your opponent with a big swing since your cards needed a body to attack. So, out of the archetype, the only heroic worth playing was Excalibur, because it could become a big beat stick. The next set would continue to prove that Excalibur was the only heroic worth playing. And today's video is brought to you by Factor. Factor is a meal planning service that sends you complete meals. All you have to do is heat it up and they're good to go. This month has been crazy between all the non-stop work and holiday events. I've been leaning on Factor more than usual to get my meals in since I don't have time to cook or shop. Factor is so convenient that it cuts out the stressful meal planning and extensive prepping, so meals come together in minutes, taking the guesswork out of what needs to be made for breakfast, lunch, or dinner. On top of it being super convenient, Factor also allows me to find meals that fit my current diet. With meal preference options like keto, calorie smart, and vegan and vegetarian, and more than 27 plus meal options each week, there's something for everyone. Meal plans range from 4 to 18 meals per week, and you can add more or reduce the number depending on your specific needs. You can easily modify food preferences and skip a week if needed. Personally, for me, I'm looking for calorie smart meals because they're less than 550 calories, which helps me stay on track. Factor meals are an essential part of my routine, easily providing me the food I need to get through the workday and holidays. If you want to give it a try, use my code POGDUELDECEMBER50 for 50% off plus free shipping. Click the link in the description or scan the QR code on your phone. Hit me up on Twitter once you give it a try and let me know what you think. In Abyss Rising, the deck would get 6 new cards for their archetype. The main deck got 2 new monsters in Heroic Challenger Watchman and Heroic Challenger Extra Sword. Both monsters were level 4 warriors. Watchman can destroy a defense position monster before damage calculation that it attacked. Extra Sword gave an XC summon monster the effect to gain 1000 extra attack if you use Extra Sword as one of its materials. The new XCs were Heroic Champion Gandiva and Heroic Champion Kusanagi. Gandiva required 2 level 4 warriors to summon. Once per turn, when your opponent special summons a level 4 or lower monster to their side of the field, you can detach material to pop the special summon monster. Kusanagi requires 3 warriors to summon, and when a trap card is activated during either player's turn, you can detach material to negate the activation of the trap card and destroy it, and then this card would gain 500 attack. Once again, the issue still arose that the XC's monsters were good, but the main deck support could have been better. Extra Sword helps make your heroic monster stronger, but how do you get it and another heroic monster on the field at the same time? The deck suffered from a lack of extenders. You know it's an issue when your best heroic extension card is something like Goblinberg. This makes it incredibly challenging to get XCs quickly on your first turn, making something like Kusanagi a chore. So inconsistency was now added to the bucket list of why heroics flop harder than LeBron. The heroic trap cards given to them in the Abyss Rising made the archetype more baffling. Heroic Advance was a normal trap card. When a face-up heroic monster you control is targeted for an attack, target another face-up level 4 or lower heroic monster you control. Double its attack during this battle phase, then switch the attack target to it and conduct damage calculation, but monsters cannot be destroyed by this battle. Heroic Gift was even more horrid, as its effect stated that if your opponent's life points was 2,000 or less, make it 8,000 and then draw 2 cards. We do many things in Yu-Gi-Oh! To draw and search cards. We'd banish the top 10 cards of our deck, banish 6 cards out of our extra deck, and even give a simple 1,000 life points to draw 1. You know what we weren't willing to do? Give our opponent all of their life points back. Not to mention that it's downright moronic to have this effect on a trap card, meaning you'd have to set it, wait turn on turn, dwindling your opponent's life points, all for your payoff to be giving your opponent their life points back to draw 2 cards late in the game. Nothing says your archetype is a cruel punchline from Konami like inconsistency, making a deck with strong XCs and no extenders, and your draw power being Heroic Gift. It was fair to write off heroics as terrible and play anything else but this archetype. Meanwhile, its XCs were used in many decks, with Excalibur seeing the most amount to play. This didn't change anytime soon, as the new cards Number Hunters joined the fray to boost the play of heroics. As you can see by the title of this video, that was a lie, even with one of the cards being a starter. Heroic Challenger Ambush Soldier was a level 1 monster. During your standby phase, you can tribute this card to special summon 2 Heroic Challenger monsters from your hand or graveyard, except another Ambush Soldier. When you do, you can banish this card and make all current heroic monsters in the field level 1. Heroic Challenger Clapsword finishes out the support received in this set. If it's special summoned by Heroic Challenger monster, you can add a Heroic Challenger from your deck to your hand. All the effects needed for the archetype were ruined by weird conditions and poor designs to balance the monsters. While Ambush Soldier could get you 2 Heroic Challengers, you'd have to wait until the standby phase to get its effect. You'd either have to use a gimmicky tactic to get onto the field safely, like Reinforced Truth, or just sit it on the field and hope its super strong stats of 0 attack and defense would be enough to prevent people from attacking it. Clapsword wasn't any better either. What made them even more puzzling is they're both level 1. With the requirements of all of their XCs needing level 4 warriors, they didn't really fit the playstyle in terms of levels at the time. None of these cards ever saw play and rightfully became part of someone's bulk tower. It would be 2 years later when they would get support in the TCG set, World Superstars, and boy were they superstar status cards, as all 3 monsters would impact the meta in specific ways. Heroic Champion Assault Halberd starts off the monster lineup. A level 4 warrior that can be special summoned from your hand if your opponent controls a monster and you control none. It can inflict piercing battle damage, and when it inflicts battle damage to your opponent, you can add a heroic card from your deck to your hand. Heroic Challenger Thousand Blades was another level 4 warrior that lets you discard a card while this card is in attack position to special summon a Heroic Challenger from your deck and then change this card to defense position. If you do, you're locked into special summoning heroic monsters for the rest of the turn. And when you take damage, you can special summon this card from your graveyard in attack position. Both cards were fantastic for heroics and legit fixed all the deck's issues that heroics had at the time. For icing on the cake, or in this case their extra deck, heroics would get one of the strongest XCs in the game to round out their support. Number 86 Heroic Champion Rongominiad was a rank 4 XCs monster that required 2+ warrior monsters as its materials. Once per turn, during your opponent's end phase, you detach 1 material from it. And then you would gain various effects based on the number of materials it had. At 1+, it can't be destroyed by battle, 2+, it gains 1500 attack and defense, 3+, it becomes unaffected by other card effects, 4+, your opponent cannot normal or special summon monsters, and at 5, once per turn, you can destroy all cards your opponent controls. What more could you ask for? 2 monsters who can search and be extenders, and one of the greatest XCs of all time are at your beckon. On your turn, you'd special summon Assault Halberd. You'd then play Thousand Blades and use its special summoning effect to special summon another Thousand Blades, and use its effect to special summon another one since Thousand Blade's special summon effect wasn't a hard once per turn. The last one could be used to special summon an extra sword to give you 5 materials for Rongominiad. You could even add a tad bit of spice and combo Thousand Blades effect with Infernal Reckless Summon, as when you special summon the extra sword off a Thousand Blades, you could use Infernal Reckless Summon to bring out the last 2 extra swords and XCs into Rongo. It didn't matter which monsters your opponent brought out, as you could simply pop them all with Rongo if you made it with 5 materials. Rongo also gave your deck a first turn option that was way stronger than Gandiva and didn't make you waste an Excalibur. You now had a control aspect added to the deck. These cards would see play, just not in a full-on heroic deck. All 3 of these cards were played in different decks that would terrorize the TCG. Halberd and Thousand Blades would be used in a rank 4 toolbox deck called Clown Blade. As silly as the deck name is, it was nothing to laugh at. The main combo usually revolved around Thousand Blade and its synergy with the Perform Mage package inside Clown Blade, specifically Perform Mage Trick Clown. Trick Clown had an effect that once per turn, if this card was sent to the graveyard, you could take 1000 damage and then special summon a Perform Mage monster from your graveyard. This combos well with Thousand Blade, as its effect allows you to special summon from the graveyard when you take damage of any sort. This allowed you to generate rank 4 materials at the snap of a hat. What if you don't see any Thousand Blades? No problem, special summon Halberd and either punch it to your opponent's monster and fetch it, or just play another level 4 and go into a rank 4. Rongo's story is a bit different, as this card didn't see any play at all during its release. Instead, its wrath would be felt around 2018, the fun-killing era of Lynx. There, we would feel the pain of playing against the meta melody known as Rongo Bongo, a warrior-eccentric toolbox containing floaters like Goki and Phantonites, alongside abusable soft once per turn cards like Dark Refer and Armageddonite that'd be used to go into various combos to get enough materials to make number 75 Bamboozling Gossip Shadow. Make Rongominiad, use number 75's effect, and attach it and all materials underneath Rongominiad in a combo that was basically an instant win condition on turn 1, but one that was resilient to hand traps. Regardless, the good times for Rongo would come to a halt, as Konami put a lid on Rongo's reign and banned it in 2019. That was the future written for Rongominiad, but until then, the deck was slated to do nothing. The good cards that were supposed to help heroics take off instead helped skyrocket other decks to the island of relevancy. So the deck quietly faded into obscurity. But wait, did you guys ask for support in Dimension Force? Yeah, neither did we. However, our children's card game overlords deemed this archetype worthy of receiving support. Since the control variant of the deck left a bad taste in the mouths of many players, the new support explicitly committed to making a glass cannon that hits your opponent's monsters with the monsters whose attack points can't fit on the card. You know, the strategy that never worked in the first place? Also, the new cards revolved around you having 500 life points or less for additional effects in certain cards, because why not? Our lineup starts off with Heroic Challenger Morning Star. When you control 2 or more heroic monsters, special summon this card. If it's normal summoned or special summoned, add a heroic spell trap from your deck to your hand. If you have 500 life points or less, special summon this card from your graveyard. Heroic Challenger Knuckle Sword was a level 1 warrior that can be special summoned if you control a heroic monster that isn't level 1. If this card is normal or special summoned, you can target one other warrior monster you control the level of that monster or this card becomes a level of the other one. Also, you cannot declare an attack for the rest of this turn except with Xyz monsters. They also came with the new Xyz monsters as well. Heroic Champion Clave Soulish is their rank 4 Xyz, requiring 2 level 4 warrior monsters as materials. Your opponent couldn't target any monsters for attacks other than this one, and you can pay life points until you have 500 left to double the attack of one monster you control at the start of the battle phase. When an attack is declared involving your opponent's monster, you can detach one material from this card, then target one phase-up monster your opponent controls. This card gains attack equal to that monster's attack until the end of this turn. To round out the monsters, Heroic Champion Yarn Griper was a rank 1 that requires 2 level 1 warrior monsters. The first time each warrior monster you control would be destroyed by battle or card effect each turn, it's not destroyed. You can detach 2 materials from it in order to target a level 4 or rank 4 warrior monster in your graveyard, special summon it, and if you do, this card gains attack equal to that monster's original attack. When an attack is declared involving your opponent's monster, you can gain life points equal to half its attack. Finally, Heroic Envoy was their new spell card, which searched for any heroic monster from the deck and added it to your hand. If you had less than 500 life points, you could banish this card from your graveyard to add a heroic card from your graveyard to your hand. One thing was certain, if you combo this deck correctly, you're guaranteed to win the duel with Heroic Champion Clave Soulish to get over 10,000 attack plus. They also got another Searcher and Envoy at Knucklestar to make looking for your key pieces a breeze, with the deck still having access to Thousand Blades and Assault Halberd. The only issue was protection. Not only does any negation to your Clave Soulish mean your turn was over, but so was the duel. The deck could play through most hand traps due to the amount of surges it had, but the Xyz could die from the common cold. Some OTK boss monsters have some sort of protection when they go for the kill. Final Sigma fits the description, and cards like Fright for a Wolf and Access Code Talker do the job as they go for the finish as well. They take a lot of resources to make, but they have some sort of protection or effect that can possibly keep your game plan from being stifled and making the risk worth the reward. However, if you can look at your monster and realize you can hilariously die to a Mirror Force or Magic Cylinder, if those cards were still meta, it might be time to pick up another deck. Heroics had no protection for their XCs, and with their need to commit all resources towards the OTK, it was almost guaranteed that your monster would be met with some sort of interruption. So its quest to become the ultimate glass cannon was sort of fulfilled. It was definitely a live by the sword, die by the sword type of deck, as you had to horrendously pay almost all of your life points to hopefully not get negated by an effect veiler. They did get one more piece of support that many hope would turn the deck around. It's also a great time to tell those people that this video is called Failed Cards and Mechanics. In Battle of Legend Crystal Revenge, Heroic Call wrapped up the last bit of support currently received for the archetype. It was a spell card that special summoned one warrior monster from your hand or graveyard, but if you special summoned a non-heroic monster by this effect, negate its effects and also it can't attack. If your life points are 500 or less, you can banish this card from your graveyard. Then target one face-up monster you control, and it gains 500 attack for each heroic card you currently control, or for each heroic card attached to XC's materials you currently control. Their final card was another extender with no protection. Didn't stop the fear of getting clapped by negation or destruction, and was nothing more than spell steroids whenever your life points was less than 500. So enjoy pumping up your enormous amount of search power as your opponent smacks their lips to end the career of Clave Soulish. This sums up Heroics: beef, beef, and more beef. The archetype had some amazing XCs at their will. Excalibur and Rongo Miniat impacted the metas they were in, just not in the deck they were made for, and that's understandable. Even their best main deck monsters like Assault Halberd and Thousand Blades did better in Clown Blade than in Heroics. The protection was nowhere to be found outside of battle, and because the cards were mostly centered around battle, you had no interaction with your opponent or their plays. Even then, almost all of your XCs except Rongo generally lost to negates or interruption. Overall, big isn't always better, especially in a glass cannon deck made out of breakaway glass that is Heroics. They'll stay heroic in the Zexal anime series, but in the cold, evil world of the TCG, they'll stay in the cold caverns of our bulk piles.